Good afternoon. Welcome to Congregation Addis Israel. We are the rabbis Lauren Holtzblatt and Aaron Alexander. We're the senior rabbis of this congregation. We want to begin by thanking Mayor Bowser and her entire team, the Metropolitan Police Department, Councilmember Che, for their dedication to the sanctity and safety of our city and their proactive messaging of love, of unity, and solidarity for all Washingtonians. Anyone who holds a position of political power has an obligation to do nothing less. We also want to give a special welcome to the press. Your public service in pursuit of truth and transparency affirms that a free, safe, and empowered press remains a backbone of our great democracy.
We want to acknowledge and lift up the traumatized residents of Charlottesville for the pain they continue to experience. We see you, we are with you, and we hope that our demonstrations of love across this city over the weekend give you just a sliver of the comfort you deserve for standing on the front lines in a battle against hatred, bigotry, anti-Semitism, and white supremacy. And to the vulnerable and too often targeted communities of Washington, D.C., we are simply an extension of your critical voice, your inherent holiness, and your struggle for dignity and equality. Vaigal kamayim mishpat utzdaka kenachal etan. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. We are the water through which justice rolls. We are the stream in which righteousness can flow, all of us together.
Amen.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Rabbis Alexander and Holtzblatt, and I want to thank all the congregants of Addis Israel for making the synagogue available to us today. I'm Mayor Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm joined by members of the government of the District of Columbia and members of the Mayor's Interfaith Council, and I want to thank them for their leadership. We are also joined by our regional partners whom you will hear from later, and you will hear directly from the Chief of Police, as well as the Director of Homeland Security for the District of Columbia, as well as the Chief of the United States Park Police. I don't have to tell any of you that in the nation's capital, we welcome millions of visitors each and every year. They come to visit our neighborhoods, to see our monuments and memorials, and they come to experience the nation's capital. Very, very few of our visitors share the views that will be expressed in Lafayette Park on Sunday. On Sunday, we know that we have people coming to our city for the sole purpose of spewing hate. 1 year after the tragedy that took place in Charlottesville, many of us still feel the anger and sadness at what we saw in our country. We remember seeing burning tiki torches. We remember Heather Heyer. It didn't make sense last year, and it doesn't make sense now. We, the people of Washington, D.C., say unequivocally that we denounce hate, we denounce anti-Semitism, and we denounce the rhetoric that we expect to hear this Sunday. Whether they are spewing hatred and racism online, on the nation's capital, let us speak in one voice and tell them that they are wrong. The only right message, and the message that I hope that we will carry jointly as Washingtonians, is love, inclusion, and diversity. This weekend and every day moving forward, we will ensure that the world knows who we are. They will know DC values, and they will know that we stand up and speak up to protect our neighbors. We are also, and we feel very fortunate as a city and a city government to support our special place as the nation's capital. So prior to this media avail, we in government and community and faith came together to discuss this weekend's events and the city's preparation. Yesterday, we heard from officials in Virginia about their plans for this weekend, and I wanted to make clear all the logistical preparation that we have entered into leading to this weekend. Earlier today, I signed a mayor's order that allows us to activate our Emergency Operations Center at our Homeland Security Division to a level 2. The Director-in-Chief will speak a little bit more about that. But put simply, it means that I'm making available every resource, public safety, traffic and management, and public works to ensure that we have safe events. While we are opposed adamantly to the message that we will hear today, we know what our responsibility is to protect First Amendment events, to protect Washingtonians, and to protect our city, and we will do just that. Right now, I want to bring up the Chief of Police, who will, as I mentioned, speak about those logistics. Let me also mention that we have been joined by our Fire and EMS Chief, Gregory Dean, our Homeland Security Chief, Christopher Rodriguez, the Director of our Office on Human Rights, Monica Palacio, Reverend Thomas Bowen from our Office of Religious Affairs, and Rashad Young, the City Administrator for the District of Columbia. Chief. I'm sorry, Chief, before you speak, I would like to recognize our Congresswoman, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who has been working with us hand in hand to prepare for this weekend's event.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I'm here first to express my confidence in the mayor and the city leaders and how they have prepared for this event, and to assure you that the district has the most experience in the United States in handling events of all kinds, so that I don't think that there is anything to be concerned about. I am particularly pleased that the federal police, who have citywide jurisdiction, the Park Police and the Secret Service Police, have joined MPD as reinforcements as well. I do want to say to members of the press, I think you would be surprised at what we learned today in our meeting with faith leaders, to know that this is a community not on the defensive. There are in congregations throughout the District of Columbia all kinds of planned events. Some will be outdoor events, some events will be inside, but it looks as though nobody was waiting to see what they had to say. In fact, affirmative messages will be going out beginning today, and you hear some of them here already. I do want to thank the Washington Hebrew congregation because with my colleague Jamie Raskin, Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland, we are having a community-wide event where we will have a keynote speaker, Reverend Barber, Reverend William Barber will be the featured keynote speaker, but there will be a panel. And the panel is entitled Developing Effective Responses to Eliminate Hate. And here you will hear from people who know how to handle hate, how to be affirmative, how to be proactive. And what you're going to see this entire weekend is a proactive, not response, but initiation on the part of the District of Columbia and the surrounding community.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Congresswoman Norton. Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Thank you, co-rabbis Alexander and Holtzblatt, and your congregation for hosting us here today. As the mayor mentioned, there is no city better equipped to handle large-scale events, including First Amendment events, than Washington, D.C. Examples of recent events we've had in our city include the March for Our Lives, 5 championship hockey games, a Washington Capitals championship parade. Planning for the championship parade, we only had a few days. We have had several months to prepare for this event. In recent weeks, we have met with the council, with community partners like our faith-based leadership business improvement districts and residents to provide an overview on this weekend's events and to help alleviate the real and understandable concerns that they have. MPD safely facilitates demonstrations on a daily basis in this city, and our goal of safeguarding everyone and ensuring property is not damaged will not deviate with this particular event. The rules for First Amendment assemblies in Washington, D.C. have always been the same. Assemblies of any, the law allows for First Amendment assemblies of any kind. The law does not allow for injury to persons or destruction of property, and neither one of those behaviors will be tolerated. As a reminder, district law prohibits carrying a firearm without a carry license by the Metropolitan Police Department in the District of Columbia, or carrying even licensed firearms on any public transportation, including metro trains, buses, and stations in the DC circulator. This Sunday, carrying guns will also be prohibited in and around the demonstration areas. So in other words, on Sunday, carrying a firearm with or without a carry permit in and around these events will be illegal, and if you are found in possession of a firearm, you will be subject to arrest. Officers will be on high alert for anyone who will be carrying a firearm. With regards to tactics, as we all know, 1 year ago, a similar group held a demonstration in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the event turned violent. A young woman, Heather Heyer, was killed and 19 others were injured when a white supremacist purposefully drove a vehicle into a crowd. A critical review was done on the events that unfolded in Charlottesville, and there were two criticisms of law enforcement that I found particularly relevant. They were criticized for failing to coordinate local and state resources and failing to keep the two groups separate. Because we've had months to plan and because this is something we do in Washington, D.C. on a regular basis, I can assure you that the planning and coordination amongst MPD and our local and federal partners has been seamless. This planning and coordination includes planning and coordination with our partners in Virginia. The U.S. Park Police, U.S. Secret Service, the Metro Police, the Fairfax County Police, the Arlington Police, and the Virginia State Police have been involved in all of the planning and coordination. With regards to separation, law enforcement's goal during the entire operational period will be to keep the two groups separated. The reason for separation is because we have seen in the past when these two groups have been in the same area at the same time, it leads to violent confrontations. Our goal is to prevent that from occurring. Every police action that you will see on Sunday will be done with the ultimate goal of ensuring the safety of everyone that attends. Some may try to misinterpret what law enforcement is doing, but the ultimate goal will to make sure that nobody is injured and nothing gets broken. We are intimately aware at MPD that the views being expressed on Sunday can strike at the core of a person's values, and we are aware that these views can awaken a passion within. We would ask everyone who attends to not let their personal passions overcome their civility. With that being said, I've been very pleased with the public views being expressed by the leadership of the counter-demonstrators. I've heard them express views of diversity and inclusiveness, which we all know are the core values here in Washington, D.C. The Unite the Right demonstration is permitted to occur in Lafayette Park, which falls under jurisdiction of the U.S. Park Police. However, upon their arrival to the city, MPD will monitor the group and bystanders to ensure that safety is maintained. MPD will have a full deployment of officers and resources so that we can ensure safety for everyone at the event while also maintaining a full level of police service in our neighborhoods. There has been no indication of specific threats of violence, and we will continue to monitor all activities leading up to the event. Before I invite Director Rodriguez to the podium, let me take this time to remind residents who may not be participating in this weekend's events to please look at road closures in the area. Keep an eye out for emergency no parking signs. If you are parking near the demonstration areas, remember to follow us on social media for any updates. I'm now going to call Director Rodriguez for a few comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Newsham. Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Thank you, members of the congregation, for hosting us today. I'd like to just reiterate what Mayor Bowser had talked about at her direction. We will activate the district's Emergency Operations Center on Sunday at 12:30 for the duration of the event. We have also invited representatives not only from federal entities, the Secret Service, the FBI, Park Police, Capitol Police, to the EOC, but also our state and local partners from Virginia and Maryland. So the EOC will be responsible for situational awareness throughout the event, for supporting our law enforcement and first responders on the ground, and we will ensure that any information that needs to be conveyed to them is done so on an immediate basis. The other thing I would add is I encourage residents in the district and visitors to the district to sign up for Alert DC, which is the primary way that we, as the Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency and the government, communicate with the public during an event. And you can do that at alertdc.dc.gov. With that, I want to turn it over to Chief McLean from Park Police.
Mayor, Congresswoman, my colleagues in the NCR, we plan and prepare for events such as this, it seems like more routinely. And the amazing dedicated workforce that we have standing and being represented behind us are the true heroes that proactively engage with organizers, engage with the NCR partners to make sure, bottom line and paramountly, that visitors to these events are safe. We institute complex integrated security plans that are based on a tiered approach to presence, engagement, awareness of rules and regulations, but also the preparedness that you would see the potential for a violent confrontation. I personally am confident in this robust security plan, in this NCR partnership, and as we plan for the worst case scenarios, it's with the focus being paramount that the outcome is the best possibly it could. So the confidence that we have in the security plan with our partners standing behind us is such that this event on Sunday will be that which allows the First Amendment to occur. Because our beat, our daily responsibilities on the National Mall is our nation's civic stage. And our officers are those guardians of democracy with the focus on making sure that everybody is safe at the end of the day. Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge that we've been joined by the council member for Ward 3 who participated with us in Faith Leaders and a conversation this morning, and she, of course, is very focused with all of us on making sure we're safe this weekend. Thank you, Councilmember Che. And we can take a few questions. Let me ask the Chief to join me at the podium.
Chief Newsham, could you give us some specifics of the route the Unite the Right 2 protesters will take from Foggy Bottom Metro to Lafayette Square, and what that route will look like as far as your police officers, whether you'll escort them or be blocking those roads with buses, or you can give us some specifics there, please?
Okay, that's Mark Seagraves from NBC4. Just please announce yourself, and I'll call on you.
Okay, a specific route has purposely not been advertised. If you go to the white supremacist website, you will see that there's an indication that they will be arriving by way of Foggy Bottom Metro and making their way over to Lafayette Park. That is the area of the city where we will have sufficient police resources to be able to assist with whatever route they choose to take. I think there's a strong likelihood that route could change all the way up onto Sunday based on what's occurring on that day. Does that answer your whole question?
Well, I guess it does. Do you know, will they cross the plaza of Pennsylvania Avenue that is closed between the White House and Lafayette Square?
That all remains to be seen. So I would be speculating at this point.
Paul Wagner with Fox 5. Will there be counter demonstrators allowed inside Lafayette Park? Is there a permit in there for the counter demonstrators?
I have someone from the National Park Service who's going to talk about permits.
Thank you.
I'm Jenny Anselmo-Sarles, spokesperson with the National Park Service. We have received a total of 5 applications for associated First Amendment demonstrations on Sunday. One of those has been withdrawn. We have issued 3 applications at this time. One we issued late yesterday. We issued a permit to Mr. Kessler for Lafayette Park on Sunday, August 12th. That permit was issued late this morning. The Answer Coalition for Lafayette Park and McPherson Square on Sunday, August 12th, and we are waiting on additional information for a final permit application for Mr. Gene Slip. So there will be shared use of Lafayette Park. Law enforcement partners have extensive plans on positions of those groups, and I don't know if either chiefs want to speak to that.
So that's what Chief Newsham is saying, is that you're going to, the main goal here is to keep them separated. You're going to have to keep these counter-protesters and the Unite the Right separated within Lafayette Park.
Yes.
So could you just,
Sorry, Mark. I'm sorry. I'll come back to you. Yes.
Stephen Cheetah with ABC7. From your information at this point, is there any way to gauge how many Unite the Right representatives will be in the city on Sunday?
I believe the permit was for 400. Is that correct? And so it could be anywhere from 1 to 400.
Yes, sir.
Greg Clark from CNN. Is there any thought of augmenting the police with National Guard staff? And given the district's unique relationship with the National Guard, would you be confident that the president would approve such a request?
I'm going to ask the chief to talk to you a little bit more about the regional and federal resources that we are bringing to these events. Largely, we have used the National Guard for traffic control when we have large-scale events like the inauguration. We don't anticipate the need for that type of traffic control, but Chief will tell you about how we've augmented our efforts.
So the mayor is exactly right. The 2 times that we've requested, or the times that we request the National Guard is generally for assisting with parking and traffic issues, or for metering folks down into the metro systems. And both of those cases are cases where we anticipate large volumes of people coming into the city and then exiting the city in large groups. You have to meter folks down onto the metro platforms to make sure that there's not enough people so it's safe. We don't anticipate needing the National Guard for either one of those circumstances, so we didn't request them. They have always been very helpful to us whenever we've requested resources.
Yes.
Yeah, Evan McMartin with Vice News. In Charlottesville, the sort of violence began when the 2 groups came together and were able to clash and fight. How are you going to keep them separated?
So I'm glad you said that, and I know you've probably read the criticism of the law enforcement actions on that day. And so our #1 goal is going to keep them separated. So we will use a number of techniques that we're going to utilize to keep them separated. We have had to do that before here in the District of Columbia. We've done so very successfully. We usually don't like to speak about those because we don't want to give anyone who may want to come here and create a problem an opportunity to think ahead about the tactics that we're going to be utilizing. But I can tell you, you hear all this conversation about special accommodations and escorts and that kind of thing. The goal of all law enforcement on that particular day is to make sure no one gets hurt and nothing gets broken. And we're going to do what we have done in the past to ensure that happens.
Megan Flaherty, WTOP. Last year in Charlottesville, leading up to the rallies, there were events the night before and 2 nights before. Is there any plan here in D.C. to be prepared for that, especially maybe at veteran statues, and how will the mayor's declaration help you?
Great question. The mayor has given us all the resources that we need, so all the overtime we need. We had also saw what happened in Charlottesville, and there was an event the day before the rally in Charlottesville, and we also are anticipating the unanticipated. So we will have a full contingent of officers prepared in the event some other demonstration pops up before the events on Sunday.
Obviously, once everybody's in Lafayette Park, it's pretty well bottled up. You guys are very good at keeping people apart inside that bubble. The question is sort of getting to and from
yeah. We're very good at that too. We are, and you know, I'm not trying to be facetious, but we are going to ensure that the groups are separated because we have seen historically if the groups are not separated, there could be the potential for violence. And this is Washington, D.C. We're not about violence here in the District of Columbia, so we're going to do everything we possibly can to keep the groups separated and prevent that from happening.
A question here, then here. Yes, sir.
Ford Fisher from News to Share, and my question is, in the absence of any weapons checkpoints, how are you going to ensure that there are no firearms on the scene at Lafayette Park?
Our officers are trained to recognize the characteristics of an armed gunman. We do that on a daily basis in the District of Columbia. I can tell you that our officers will be on high alert for anyone who may be carrying a firearm in the District of Columbia, particularly in the demonstration areas on Sunday. And if you come to Washington, D.C. With an illegal firearm, I can tell you that we have a police department that's very adept at getting those illegal firearms out of our community.
Yes, ma'am. Carla Flores with Telemundo. As far as other weapons, I know other events you tell people not to bring umbrellas or certain other objects that could be used as weapons. Are you telling protesters not to do so?
So do you want to talk about the park, the restrictions in the park? Okay.
So in addition to firearms and other illegal weapons in Washington, D.C., we also know, being in law enforcement, that anything can be used as a weapon. So our officers are adept and trained and prepared to identify an umbrella, a metal pipe, anything that you could think of, a shod foot, the fists that people use to conduct violent acts with. So our officers will use their discretion, their flexibility, and their scalability from the visual presence of a routine police officer to those teams that will need to be utilized if the event becomes violent.
But even like a tiki torch can be a weapon, right?
That's correct. Things that are not otherwise prohibited could become weapons in and of themselves with a display or with the intent to use it as a weapon.
If you have a permit for a gun, no guns, or what about guns that if you have a permit?
The law provides that we can restrict areas for certain events in the city, and so we will be restricting even folks who have a carry permit from carrying firearms on Sunday. So I want that to be absolutely clear. Even if you have a permit to carry a firearm in the District of Columbia, on Sunday you will not be able to carry that firearm in any of the areas that have been identified.
Chief, what if some of these people
Hold on
come?
a second. Mark, you were next.
Chief McLean, can we ask about the parameters on Lafayette Square? We know from the counter-protesters permit, they'll be entering on the east side of the square. Do you know how that would be cordoned off for protesters, counter-protesters, and is there a separate corral for press or whoever can answer that?
So whenever you have multiple groups coming to Washington, D.C. to demonstrate, the answer to your question is fluid. So I can't give you an answer until the day of the events, and we will adjust accordingly. That's what we do with our plan. We consider every eventuality, and we have a counter move for every move that any group could make to make sure, and the ultimate goal, and I said it over and over again, is to make sure that everybody can participate in this event safely.
Let me also add, because there's been a lot said about Unite the Right, and the people behind me represent Unite the Love. And they have spoken this morning and in the days and weeks leading up to these events about how to amplify the speech that we support, love, inclusiveness, and diversity. And so my office will be issuing a number of events that have been planned that are leading up to this weekend. Congregations around the district, for example, are opening up their doors. The Congresswoman has already talked about, I call it a teach-in, because she's going to teach about the First Amendment, and she was very eloquent this morning about why it's important that we educate each generation about the First Amendment, but also what our responsibilities are to increase the amount of speech about what makes our city so special, and that is its diversity. So we will, and we want all of our residents, not just in DC, but around this whole region, we know our region could be impacted, to think about ways that they can support events that amplify what we are about as a city. The council member was also eloquent in saying, what if nobody even bothered to pay attention to this nonsense that we will hear spewed at Lafayette Park, but instead stayed in their own communities and talked about how we can live better together. Any other questions? Yes, Mark.
Is there anyone up there, perhaps from Fairfax, who can tell us anything about Metro? Metro is conspicuously absent in this press conference, and there's been a lot of talk about how we're going to get from Vienna to Foggy Bottom, which I know is in Virginia. But can someone tell us what the plans are for Metro?
Sure. Let me ask the chief, Chief Newsham, and of course we are joined by our chief from Fairfax County, and we're delighted to have you with us to talk a little bit more about what we know about that plan.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I will say that, and I said a little bit earlier, the plan that we see now from the organizers of this event are to get on the Metro in Vienna and to come into Foggy Bottom. And I think we've all heard that publicly. And so we will be prepared for that, but we will also be prepared in the event that changes. And I think there is a strong likelihood that route will change. So to stand up right here, right now, and suggest publicly that we know exactly the route of travel into the city, I think would be a little disingenuous. And I really don't think we will know for sure until the day of the event. Ed, did you want to add something to that?
Sure. As the mayor articulated and as the chiefs articulated, we are working together to have one unified plan to keep this region safe. Number one is the safety of all our community, and then to allow First Amendment rights to be exercised. Vienna Metro is a spot that Fairfax County Police, along with the Metro Transit Police, will have a large presence at. And our goal is to allow ridership to happen in a safe environment, and we are prepared and very flexible to deal with increased ridership, and all the safety issues that were articulated today are the same plan in Fairfax County.
Do you plan to keep the groups segregated on the Metro platforms or in the Metro cars? Do you know if there's any talk about how that will be done? I mean, keeping them separate seems to be a theme here.
My goal is safety of all riders. I don't know what one group will look like or what another group looks like. It's a safe environment that we want to enhance and allow everybody to get on the Metro to use as a consumer and get to DC in a peaceful manner. And our goal is to prevent physical violence or harm to property. And that's the primary mission of our police department in Fairfax.
Will Fairfax have officers on the platforms and in the cars?
The Metro Transit Police are in charge of the platform. The Fairfax County Police Department will be present at the Vienna Metro throughout this entire event.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. And let me take responsibility for anybody who's not here and our communication about that. So that's on us. Yes. Did you have a question? Okay. Yep.
Chief, everybody, I'm sure, hopes that no arrests will have to be made. But in case something happens where they are, could you respond about plans by police to avoid some of these situations that people have complained about in the past, that those who are just bystanders sometimes get scooped up into the arrests when a large number of people have to be arrested?
Well, our hope is, before turning to the chief, is that everybody follows the law and follows, and is very careful about following the law. As you have heard everybody say, we want people to be able to exercise their rights, whether we agree with them or not, whether they're so-called unite the right or counter-protest, and that's important. We want to dissuade anybody from purposely coming to our city to destroy our city. So if you're coming with weapons, things that are used to break windows and the like, which we have seen, don't do it. And so that we want to send that very clear message. We also want to be very clear that this chief and our city is committed to constitutional policing, and we want everybody to be safe. Chief.
Yeah, I just echo what you said, Mayor. The rules are pretty simple. Don't hurt anyone and don't break anything, and if you do, the police will have to take action. And we'll do that in the best way we can, so we hold the people that are, get the people who are actually responsible for doing those things.
The mayor mentioned community events that are hopefully going to be going on as well, but as far as anticipating the numbers, we know what the permits are and what the numbers are. Do you expect more people coming in, counter protesters that are permitted to come in? And from a Park Police standpoint, what happens then? How many people over the permitted number, then what do you do?
So we use a predictive analysis, so we follow social media, we look at the permits that have been granted. There are usually estimates, as you know, on the permits. Sometimes they could be larger, sometimes they could be smaller. So we'll see how it goes. I can tell you from what we've seen to this point, with regards to intelligence, it appears that we will have manageable numbers. They won't be numbers greater than we've seen in the city on multiple occasions.
Can we get a clarification from the Park Service as to the numbers on the permits for the counter protesters?
So I don't have the specific numbers, and I will defer to Jenny after I answer. But to follow up on what Chief Newsham said, this city, this region encounters First Amendment activities routinely, big and small. If there's a large event where a park or an area can't accept the amount of visitors that we see, we also have contingency plans for other areas where other First Amendment groups may exercise their First Amendment as well.
So like overflow areas, basically.
Correct.
Okay. We'll take a few more questions. In terms of permit numbers, permits were being issued as I was on my way here, so I don't have the latest numbers in the permits, but check the FOIA reading room on the National Park Service website under President's Park. That will have the issued permits with the numbers in those permits that were asked for.
Can we go back through the permits, just what's been issued and what was withdrawn?
Sure.
Yeah, Answer Coalition, Kessler, of course.
Yep. The first permit we issued was late yesterday. It was for the DC United Against Hate, also referred to on the permit as the Metro DC Democratic Socialists of America. That permit is for Freedom Plaza on Sunday, August 12th. They will join the Answer Coalition in Lafayette Park. The Answer Coalition's permit was issued this morning for August 12th in Lafayette Park and McPherson Square. We issued a permit to Mr. Kessler in Lafayette Park for Sunday, August 12th, and we have a pending application from Mr. Gene Slip for Lafayette Park on August 12th. We are waiting on additional information prior to being able to issue the final permit request we've received.
Okay, last few. One?
Yeah, I guess.
Two?
My question is that we have like the full knowledge of this region talking to us today. People who live here are nervous about this weekend. Should they be?
I'm going to answer your question just based on a conversation I had yesterday. I have a 96-year-old constituent from North Carolina, and she grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, and she's been living in Washington, D.C. since 1946. And she looked at me and she said, they've never come to Washington. And that to me represented the type of anxiety that many people feel, that see Washington as a refuge from that type of hate, anti-Semitism, tiki torch burning, and the like. And they don't want to see it here. They also recognize that we are the nation's capital where all sorts of speech and demonstration has happened. And they want to make sure that that type of speech and hate rhetoric doesn't change us. Yes.
I just wanted to ask perhaps to the chief, were there any lessons that were learned from the incidents that happened during the 2017 inauguration that perhaps might be applied to this weekend?
Sure. Chief Newsham.
You know, every time we have a large-scale demonstration in the city, we learn something, and we adjust accordingly. So absolutely, to answer your question, we have adjusted accordingly. Same rules apply, though. If you come here with the intent of hurting somebody or breaking something, we're going to place you under arrest, and that'll always be the case here in the district. If you come here and you have a mind, which is one of our DC values, which is of peace and unity and diversity, and you're coming here to protest, whatever that may be, Please come, enjoy yourself.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Anybody want Rabbi Holtzblatt or Rabbi Alexander? They're available for interview. Mercy, Mercy, the Community Relations Council are all available one-on-one.
All right. And you never know. You never know. You prefer. All right. It's still connected to. Yep. Thank you very much. Good.
Hey, the one thing that I didn't.
Connected with the incident.